So stimming, this is really interesting. And so stimming is a really good thing. What it is, it's repetitive actions to stimulate our senses essentially. And so it can be a reaction to too much or not enough stimulation from the environment. It might be to regulate our emotions or cope with an overwhelming situation. And so a lot of people think stimming is just if we're understimulated, right? And we're trying to get, because with ADHD, our brains can be chronically understimulated, chronically bored, almost feeling like tired or fatigued or burned out when we're really not. We're just really, really understimulated. And my brain, and you might, and or you can have overstimulated where you're kind of running always, you're kind of always overstimulated, and it can fluctuate, or you can have a baseline. And so stimming is meant to kind of help you regulate essentially, and process emotion. And so, stimming can be positive or negative, like, you could be excited, right? And we've seen like the hand flapping, right, for autism. That's kind of one of the main ones. And it can also be to show excitement as well. Like there's so much emotion, it's hard to hold. And it can also be, biting your nails or picking your skin or things like that for anxiety. And maybe that's not helpful. So in a way, your brain's regulating, and may not be as helpful. And really, what the core of this is, and a lot of the research is like, we're dopamine seeking, right? It's stimming can provide dopamine, and it calms us and it soothes us, and it can stabilize our mood, and it can reset our attention. It can increase our focus, like doodling when you're listening to a class. If anybody got in trouble, I know we got a lot of neurodivergent people in here, but sitting still in class, we had to do other stuff, right? Like we had to click our pen or take it apart, if anybody's like taking that apart, or we had to doodle or things like that. It actually can help us focus, and stimulate our attention. Or rolling a pen can be soothing if you've got anxiety. Like I know when I get anxious, I kind of touch my beard a little bit, or we'll grab onto something soft, something like that. Or like it can be exciting. We can feel big emotions, and sometimes they're really big, and we've got to kind of release the energy, or it turns into anxiety. And what's interesting, especially as adults, and we'll hit on this, is that we probably got reprimanded a lot for stimming in our lives, especially as kids, especially if you appeared normal, whatever. So then people would correct you, like, don't do that, or sit still, or what are those things. So we suppressed it. And what you'll find is if you have not allowed yourself to stim, what you'll see is that when you do allow that, your anxiety will very likely decrease to some degree. Because you're allowing we probably suppress, you haven't even known it, but it's masking, right? If you're not allowing yourself to stim, what you're doing is you're masking, maybe subconsciously, because you've been corrected your whole life. When you let yourself do that, it's kind of weird, and you might feel weird or scary. It might feel scary at first, and you'll start to feel relief. And that's what I have experienced. That's what my clients have experienced as well. And so it can really help us in a lot of ways instead of suppressing that. And so let's see, and it can help some of the core like drivers for ADHD for us specifically, because we'll get to the autism stuff later on down the line. But that hyperactivity, right? We need to do stimming to kind of soothe that internal restlessness. We're sensory seeking, so we're looking for stimulation to keep our brain engaged. Because if we're understimulated, sometimes it can actually like hurt, or it feels like really bad or depressed, or just like, like it doesn't feel good. And then we can, so what a neurotypical brain, they stim sometimes too when they get bored, right? People without ADHD experience what we experience sometimes, whereas we experience it all the time. So someone without ADHD is going to get bored sometimes, right? They might get anxious, they might get late. That's where you see people who don't have ADHD, they still like bite their nails, right? It's some kind of self-soothing thing that can happen. Or, I mean, we'll get to this, but eating. Sometimes overeating can be a soothing mechanism. And so everyone stims, we just might do it more, or might be more obvious. And then also it can help with impulse control, right? If you want to do something and you do a self-soothing activity or something that stimulates you, it stops you from buying that thing on Amazon that you shouldn't be doing. Or maybe you found a different way to stim instead of, overeating or something like that. There's all kinds of stuff that you can kind of, once you're aware of your stims and what's going on, one, it can take away the shame, right? And then also you can find alternatives if you don't like the ones you're doing. And stimming can be intentional or it can be completely unconscious. So now we're going to get into the different types of stimming. And so everyone here has like probably a different stimming profile. Um, we all stim differently. We're going to have some similarities, some differences. So some of these, some of us will do, some not. And so the first one I'm going to talk about is auditory stimming. I think probably a lot of us do this, auditory stimming. And then I'm going to give you a list of examples. So clicking or tapping objects to make sound. So that could be pen clicking. It could be snapping your fingers. It could be, nails on your desk making noises like that. Humming or singing the same tune. So you might do it outwardly where you hear it, where you're singing that song out loud. Whistling, that can be a form of stimming as well. Listening to white noise or rain sounds. Does anybody here that turns on music when they work? Like, so listen to me. I mean, that's stimming, right? Like we've all done this. That's a form of stimming. Whatever it is to stimulate our brains, and then listening to the same part of a video or movie on repeat. That could be one. Or somebody listen sometimes the same like song over and over again, or the same album just over and over and over again. So that's something that we all do. Auditory stimming is what a lot of us do, and it can help self-soothe, and especially if you're playing the same song over and over again or the same album, it can be really familiar and it can really help us regulate. And then echolalia is another thing that some of us can do, especially if you have ADHD. And echolalia is a little bit different. And what that is, it's a repetition of words or phrases spoken by others. And so it might be when somebody says something, you say it back in your head. You could say it out loud. You could say it in your head. And you might repeat words. You might repeat phrases. You might do it right in the moment. You might do it later. And it might be something you heard on TV. So it's kind of like repeating that over and over again. So that's normal. It's like child development. Doesn't mean, you have autism. When you get to an adult, if you're doing that pretty consistently, sometimes it can be a marker of autism. But again, it just depends on your profile. But that's echolalia. That's a formal term. So that's auditory stimming. The next one is oral and olfactory stimming. So this is taste and smell. And these are, important senses for us. And like strong smells, flavors, chewing, biting, these can all like give a sense of relief and kind of focus, and also make us kind of present in our body as well. And so essential oils, and I have a bunch of ones. I didn't grab the essential oil. I forgot it upstairs before the call, but essential oil, especially orange, that's one that some people use to like focus or just kind of uplift mood. And then seeking out strong odors. Geez, I'm fumbling here. So in school, do mates like sniff markers or like glue? Do mates do that? Was that just me? Is that why I'm stumbling words? I sniffed like, what is it, rubber cement? Oh my gosh, I was a kid. I was like trying to get a high on that. Like in the second, third grade, I didn't even know, but I just love the smell of it. I was like, oh my gosh. Or like gasoline or vinegar or perfume, like strong smells that are really stimulating, right? And we talked about biting fingernails, other objects. There are all kinds of stims you can get on Amazon. You can get a whole pack and try different ones and see what you like. There's one that is like a necklace, and it has a thing you can bite that some people, especially more on the spectrum, can use. But you might like have a necklace, or some people might just like chew on their, if you're wearing a sweatshirt, right? The end of that, or chew on a pen. That's stimming. And there are people who don't have ADHD or autism who do that. Like sucking on your cheek, your tongue, your lips, your feet, like the inside of your cheek. All of this is stimming. All that's stimming. Repetitive mouth movements. That can be one. And then food. So this is one that a lot of people don't know is stimming sometimes. So food can be that. And I want to show you a couple, like something crunchy. Well, you can't really see that. Like something crunchy is something that can be stimming. And you might be reaching for food and think, well, why am I reaching for food? And it's like you're looking for stimulation. It's like, why am I reaching for food if I'm not hungry? That can happen. So there's different, and then this is a big one, like bubble water, or you might go for soda because the bubbles, the carbonation. There we go. Got a couple of people who have that. So this is one too. Sour food. Someone just mentioned that. Absolutely. And if you know you're an old, oral stimmer, things like this is like Smart Sweets. So there's only 3 grams of sugar, but they're kind of sour. They taste sweet. So if you know, instead of shaming yourself and thinking, oh, I gotta like stop eating, I gotta just find replacements that are really good. If you like soda, like let's say you like Sunkiss, right? You could take, I do this all the time. So take like just a soda water, and then you can get these little singles. And so it's like orange soda, but it doesn't have the sugar. And you can get similar effects. So, and you can mix different flavors. You can make different drinks. You can put ice in there. Those are different things, like cold packs. That's something I have too. And so once you figure out like where you go to and what you're drawn to, that's when you can say, hey, do I like this? Is this positive? Is this negative? And you kind of get your profile, and then take care of yourself. And then when you're at the grocery store, or whatever, get that stuff. Yeah, somebody mentioned sucking on your thumb. That's great too. That's one as well. Stimming is so healthy, and a lot of us have suppressed it at such a high level because it was corrected, because people are trying to help us. And now I'm saying, no, stim, like your mental health will get better, your anxiety will get better, your mood will get better. Everything's going to get a little bit better if you allow yourself to stim. So the next one is tactile stimming. Tactile stimming. So this covers a wide range of like touch, texture, pressure related behaviors. So you might be like, especially if your love language is like touch, like physical touch, right? Like being hugged. They have what's called deep pressure therapy that can be really helpful as well, especially for kids with autism before bed. And that's putting pressure on certain parts of the body, and it can regulate the nervous system. Weighted blankets. That's something that's been really helpful. Hot baths, taking a hot bath, hot shower, rubbing one's hands together or on surfaces if you're playing with your desk or your pen or anything like that. Stroking and playing with your hair, braiding it, crumpling paper can be that. And then stim toys, and I'm going to show you, got a bunch of these, right? I got a Christmas themed one, which is pretty fun. So we've got one like this. This is kind of neat. It's like it came in a pack, but it's like a keyboard, but you can push them all in. It's like a Christmas keyboard. It's just fun, and they're not that expensive. You can go on Amazon and find some fun stuff. And then if you like the auditory, there's like clickers that you can have. It's almost like you can do that. And those are really fun. Twisting things. This is more of the tactile stimming, like twisting things, pieces of fabric, braiding it together. Let's see, squeezing pillows, soft blankets or plushies. This is kind of a fun one. So this looks like a nice unicorn, right? Well, it also has like, it's got a little thing that comes out the bottom. Like it's just really fun. It's like glitter in there and stuff, So it's kind of fun. Like let yourself be a kid, but it's super soft. And so that can be really soothing. Or you might like Pokey. This is kind of cool. It's a 3D printed dragon, so it's kind of like pokey depending on what kind of stimulation you need. And so it's just, this is your excuse to go buy a little bit of toys, because it's just kind of fun. It's just kind of fun. So those are tactile stimming, and there's all kinds of neat stuff depending on your profile. I mean, I pulled out a bunch. This one is kind of neat. It's got, I don't know if it's baking soda in there. And then you have stuff that can kind of like your brain. This is like a puzzle that you got different colors and can put back together and form shapes. So that's like cognitive stimming, which we'll talk about in a second. So that's tactile stimming. And that could be also, like anything that's kind of stimulating that you can kind of touch or get texture with. And then we have the next one is vestibular and proprioceptive stimming. So this involves kind of essentially moving your body. So rocking back and forth, that's one that can help. Swinging or a sensory swing, that's something you can get in your house, and it can actually soothe as well. Spinning in circles, and you'll see, again, with autism, sometimes you're going to see a bit more extreme form of these. Or you'll have some people with autism, they spin in circles, they never get tired, because again, their brain chemistry and how it's formed is different, and you'll see they just spin for an hour. There's a young boy that just can spin and listens to music in his headphones, and he's just in his happy place, and it's so sweet to watch. I saw it on YouTube. Jumping or bouncing. I'm not using mine right now, but you can get, like, I have a yoga ball chair like that. So you can bounce while you work. That's vestibular stimming. Pacing, running back and forth, walking on tiptoes. Does anybody here, when you're on the phone, you pace? Yeah, yeah. So that's one you can pace. Yeah, hammock, porch swing, those kinds of stuff. Those can all be types of vestibular and proprioceptive stimming. And then we have visual stimming, and it's so cool to learn all the types of stims. So we still have more. That's how many there are. And so visual stimming, watching like repetitive things like. Do you guys remember the screensaver, or maybe in school when we had the, depending on how old you are, they roll in the TV, and it's that like thing, it hits the corners like the logo of the TV, and you wait for it to hit right in the corner. It doesn't, and the whole class was watching before we had smartphones, right? So that would be a visual stim right there. Like screensaver, fidget spinner, looking at it can be one. This is a cool one right here. It's like a little wand with glitter and bubbles and stuff like that, if you can see that. So this would be considered a visual stim. If you have things that light up, that would be a visual stim as well. Rapid blinking, fixing on patterns or colors. Like you can see the visual stim, right? Like I'm representing it right now with all these cool colors and stuff in the background. Um, Another one, aquariums. So I'm kind of an aquarium nerd. And actually, what's really interesting is aquariums and watching fish have found to have some similar results as like EMDR, depending on the fish tank and how the setup is. So it's can actually like help with PTSD if you have an aquarium. And then here's one that you may not know is stimming. Our phones. This is like a stim machine, and it's a dopamine machine, and it can actually be really helpful sometimes. So it's not always this like terrible thing, to be on your phone. It can actually help soothe us. So if you've noticed you start feeling anxiety, or you need a pattern interrupt, and you grab your phone, that's not always a bad thing. Like if you're in some kind of pattern and thinking, that's not helpful. It's just being aware and not being on it all the time. But yeah, like this is a stim. Our phone can be a stim. It can also be a cognitive stim, which I'll talk about. And so, yeah, visual stimming, watching TV shows, playing video games, that can be a stim in some ways. All of those things can do that. And then we have our next one is vocal stimming. The sensory expression is more about the sounds being made and how they feel rather than how they sound. So vocal stimming would be like making whistling sounds, humming or singing, growling, grunting, like clearing your throat, making sudden loud sounds, yelling, whispering or mumbling, repeating the same word or phrase, mimicking other people's voices. So I'm gonna make an adjustment. I said echolalia because I added that. That should go in vocal stimming, and we'll correct that for the note. So echolalia, repeating the same thing, that could be vocal stimming. Speaking in a sing-song voice, repetition out loud. So it's about you're the output of the sound, whereas auditory is you're receiving this external auditory. So that's vocal stimming. And then our last one, and you probably may not know this, is cognitive stimming. So cognitive stimming, it could be thought loops, it could be fantasizing or daydreaming. And here's something you may not know. So has anybody experienced like what we'd say negative thoughts or things that don't feel good, and you just keep thinking about it and kind of ruminating? What that can be is it can also be stimming. And so what I mean by that is because a lot of stimming is producing dopamine in our brains. And so when we're repeating the same thing over and over again, what it does, especially if it's stressful or negative, it creates cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone that then creates dopamine. So if you think about something that makes you angry, it makes you scared, fearful, we're actually getting cortisol and stress hormones and dopamine, and it can be stimming. It can be stimming, which is why if you've ever had like you go for a walk, right? And you're like, man, I got to get in my head. You go for a walk, and I'm like, oh, I'm good, right? It's because your brain said, oh, thanks. Here's some other dopamine. We don't need to do that anymore. It's kind of wild. And so that's been part of my OCD, ADHD, and autism and OCD therapy is doing things that will do pattern interrupts. So cognitive, and you might and it could also be positive too. Like if you've sat in school and just daydreaming and like thinking about stuff and, kind of separating from the environment you're in and fantasizing about going to Disney World, right? Or like a sport that you like, or a toy you want to play with at home, or just at work, if you're daydreaming about doing something else in a way that's that can be stimming. What you're doing is you're creating dopamine. And a lot of this is just, it's like a healthy, in a lot of ways, coping mechanism to help you regulate. Because if we didn't do the stim, we're in an environment that is very understimulating, it's very uncomfortable, or we're having trouble like regulating our emotions, or we're not able to self-soothe, and that can feel traumatic. So that's why stimming is actually really important, because it helps us navigate the world. And this is for anybody, whether you have ADHD or autism or you don't. Stimming is important and it's vital. And so when we talk about like healthy versus disruptive stimming, right? Like stuff that doesn't harm us, that doesn't harm anyone else, is helpful stimming. It can improve productivity. Now, when you're stimming, you might, and I know we have people here do this, you might pick your skin, right? You might do nail biting. There's something called trichomania, and that's not necessarily stimming. That's in a different category, but that's where people can pull their hair out. So that can come from different causes, or that can be a little overlap. You might be doing a repetitive stim, and it's really disruptive to your other sensory sensitive ADHD coworker, right? So it might be good to do something else, or maybe you are eating excessive amounts of sugar or things that maybe aren't best for you to do, but you need that, or maybe you're on your phone or you're on things for visual stims way too much. So those are things, and it's just to watch those, and just make sure that you are okay with the way that you stim. And if not, there's other options. But being able to identify what type of stim it is, because you might be drawn more to cognitive stimming, you might be more to the auditory stimming or the olfactory, right? Or smells, or it might be to movement. And so identifying the type of stim, if you find one that's maybe not very helpful or positive for you, and you can identify which category it is, then you can even Google or use ChatGPT and say, what are some forms of, some healthy forms of auditory stimming, or what are some healthy forms of olfactory stimming? And then you can start to play with different types of stims in that same category and see if it checks that box for you, and then you can remove the other one. But just saying, I need to stop picking my skin, and that's that, and you don't give yourself another tool, is not very fair. That being said, I want to show you, you'd be surprised at what kind of fidget toys they have to replace this too. So this is if you have skin picking stuff, right? So they have fidgets for that. It's really neat. So they have skin picking fidget toys. And this is, you can see for trichomania as well, which I referenced. But you'll see that there are types of stims for skin picking. So you can actually pick these little beads out. It's in this gel. You could do it in this one. They have this. This is hair. If you have trichomania or you pull hair, you can actually take a tweezers and pull these out. And some of these are reusable. So if you have a stim that maybe doesn't feel as helpful to you, throw it in Google, because if you stim a certain way, chances are that somebody else has that stim too, and they probably have a toy. And if not, oh my gosh, go make the toy, make millions of dollars, and then give me a royalty check because it was my idea. No, I'm just kidding. There's all kinds of alternatives that are pretty neat. And like I said, if you bite your cheek or something, they have chew stims, and that can be really neat as well. So identifying your stimming profile, I just wrote down a couple questions and to think about is like, what do you do when you feel anxious or excited or bored or overwhelmed? Like, what do you do when you feel really anxious? Do you cross your arms? Do you grab something? Do you grab for a drink? Do you grab your phone? When you feel excited, do you clench it, or do you just sit there and kind of stay, neutral? How about when you're bored? Because that's the thing. Also, if you are wanting to decrease screen time, you might get some alternative fidget toys that you could go to instead, because you might be going to your phone as your sole stim, because you haven't given yourself other options. And then another question I thought was kind of neat is, do you stim to focus or to zone out? You stim to focus, does it help you focus, or is it to zone out? Is it a pattern interrupt? So it's just cool to have self-awareness. Doesn't mean you need to change anything. It's just interesting to like identify our own stim profile. And then what sensory inputs soothe you? Is it texture? Is it a type of rhythm or a sound? Is it something like hot tea? A hot bath? Because that's another thing. If you get anxiety, like me, or you have PTSD or something, and then you get really triggered. If you have a toolkit, because a lot of times when we're in the trigger, we can't, it's hard to think about it. But if you have a toolkit, it's like, oh, I'm triggered. I need soothing stuff. And then here's what that is. That can be really helpful as well. Yeah, and you might do all of them. Let's see. So some people can journal. If you want to journal, if you don't have to get that detailed, you can. It just depends. Or ask your partner or your friend what they notice. So they've shown that stimming actually increases flow state. It decreases emotional overwhelm. It allowing yourself to stim can actually replace like shame. So if you have a stim toolkit, so if you go to a conference or an all-day training, something like that, I will tell you that I absolutely have a toolkit. And I have certain stuff that I bring. I might bring flavored water. I might bring certain things that, like things that are kind of discreet that I can keep in my pocket. There's all kinds of stuff. So bring your favorite stims as you go. I might wear a heavy sweatshirt. I have really thick, heavy sweatshirts that act as like almost weighted blanket in a sense. And you also, if you struggle with transitions, you might have stims that you do before or after meetings, and stims could be vestibular or proprioceptive, like stretch, or go for a walk. That's stimming. Walking can be stimming. And so you might integrate those to kind of transition in and out. You might have certain music that helps you focus, those kinds of things. And then when you're in meetings, I want to show you some of my favorite stim fidget toys that you can keep in your pocket. So if you've gone to any of my presentations at some of the big events, which we'll have more, like this is really neat. There's like a little marble in there and you can just roll it back and forth. So I've handed these out at some of my presentations. So you might have them if you've been to any of my talks. But this is just kind of a neat one. And you can Google like professional stim toys. This is cool. It's a zipper. And it's actually a bracelet. So you could just wear it, on your wrist under your shirt. That's kind of neat. This is like, I think it's called the bicycle chain one. I've handed this one out too. If you've been to any of my talks, you probably have one of these. This is cool. This is called an acupuncture ring. So this is the third one I've handed out. So this is an acupuncture ring, and you can roll it back and forth on your finger, which is really cool. And it's like pressure therapy, and this is one of the favorites I've heard from a lot of people. So that's called an acupuncture ring. These are super cheap, things like this, or you can have something on your keychain. So these are like they're like little peas in a pea pod, but they have little faces. They're kind of cool. So you could have them everywhere, and then you have something to grab instead of being destructive, which is what I can be. I can take pens apart. I used to carve stuff in my desk at school, all kinds of stuff. And then again, just remember, if you might have that language, like we were probably punished for stimming as kids, or, stop tapping, sit still, stop bouncing your leg, and people are trying to help us. They're trying to help us. But we might need them more than somebody else. So that's where we hide them, right? And we get more burned out, or we disconnect, or we even dissociate. And so we might have been called weird before, or might be punished for being too rowdy, or not sitting still in school. So we learn stimming from a very early age subconsciously is not good. And we've got to hide it, or it's immature or something. And so this is where we're going to rewire what that narrative is and embrace stimming. And some ways that you can reframe that is stimming is a form of communication and nervous system care. I love that. I found that in my research. I can't remember which site that was, but stimming is a form of caring for our nervous system. And it's not unprofessional to stim. As we see that over 50% of agents, it looks like from the reports we're getting, have some type of neurodivergence. And so what you might find is you stimming, somebody else sees that and it allows them to stim, and now they unmask and now they decrease their anxiety. So if you've been to a training and you look around, everybody's sitting, have you ever had that when you've gone to a training and you're like, oh, everybody's probably taking notes and learning and I'm just kind of restless or whatever. If you knew all the other people that were thinking that, especially as a coach, with this many calls in, if we can get everybody to unmask, that's my goal. And all the real estate companies everywhere in these trainings, we get people to unmask. Oh my gosh, how much more fun would that be, right? So we've got a section at the back where you can stand, and you can move around and have that be normal. And then in the front, you can sit and focus and do what you need to do. And then I would personally like to get rid of lunch and learns. If you've got sound sensory stuff, that's Usually that can be distracting for a lot of people. Some people it's helpful, but if we're looking at a ADHD friendly training, then I typically wouldn't have crunchy foods that might distract others. So that's going to be in the works. But yeah, reframing that, just unmasking it helps other people. It helps us express our emotions. It helps us regulate. Helps us soothe. And you don't need to grow. It's not something to grow out of. It's something you embrace. And then just some other little permission statements like my body needs this right now. My nervous system needs this right now. If you feel resistance, and just practice that. I stim to stay in my body and in this moment. There's no wrong way to regulate. And the other thing you can say too is if you have, somebody have like a partner or a spouse or a family member or a friend that talks and says really long stories where you're like, oh my gosh. Okay. So what you can do, have stims in your pocket and then tell them, because some people don't understand it. When I'm that spouse, that's funny. But tell them like when you grab a fidget toy, it means you want to focus. Because when you're teaching your partner about this stuff, sometimes people, why do you need a fidget toy when I'm talking? Am I that boring? And it's like, no, I really care about you and I want to. I want to stim because I want to stay really focused and this is really important. And so then you teach your partner. So teach your partner that stimming is a good thing and it means you care. It means you focus. So just a couple things to think about too. What are 3 ways you could honor your stimming needs this week? Or even one way, and that could be maybe you go for a walk in the middle of the day, or you don't make yourself sit at the desk as much. You stand up when you do it, or you go pick up some soda water, or you go ahead and get a couple fidget toys off Amazon, or you go to Walmart. I mean, they have them at stores, Walmart, all kinds of things. And then what's one stim that you've judged that you want to reclaim? Those are some more things to think about. And I'm going to touch on ADHD and autism stimming. So both groups, right? STIM for sensory regulation, emotional processing, and focus. Both groups, whether it's ADHD or autism, or you have both. But if we take them to see, I have my STIM toy. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I'm not gonna put it down. So both of those can STIM like that. ADHD stimming is going to be more context specific, right? Task related, short burst, dopamine driven. Something happens in the moment, you grab it, or you're bored, something like that. Whereas autistic stimming is going to be more repetitive. I say chronic, but I don't mean chronic in a bad way. It's like just consistent regardless of the environment, more so. It's going to be more rhythmic. It's going to be more about soothing, and it might be more predictable and consistent over time. And so with autism, your stimming is going to be less dependent on the environment, and it's more because the brain is so sensitive. And I would say my stimming needs probably get in a little bit more alignment with ADHD, even though I have both, because I'm level 1 autism. So there's a little overlap, but you'll see as you get to level 2 or level 3, which is going to need a lot more support, you're going to see the stimming be a lot more consistent and repetitive. And some people with level 3 autism, they just stim literally all the time. Like they always have to be stimming because the brain needs to be regulated and it's not in the world environment and how things were formed. So that's, when we look at stimming, yes, like everybody stims, but that's one of the key markers with ADHD versus autistic stimming is the repetition. And then also, even if you're level 1, I will tell you, for myself, like the same song over and over and over and over and over again, and I just put it on repeat. And it's really soothing. So there's some repetitive, but it's not, I would say generally more towards ADHD. But I'm curious, if you have level 1 autism as well, you might lean more towards autistic stimming. It just depends. And so what really matters though is just in general, right? That you have a name for what you're experiencing, and that you're able to self-soothe and create accommodations or a toolkit for yourself. And so just a couple things for your toolkit is thinking like, what helps me stay present, right? What are the stims that you love the most? And then you can make like certain playlists for certain needs. Like if you auditory stimming, that's kind of fun. It doesn't mean you got to buy stuff. You could do certain playlists that get your energy up, that take it down, that's soothing, that's energizing, that helps you focus. Binaural beats are really cool. So you can look at that for ADHD binaural beats, and you can put that in like Apple Music. You can put it in Spotify. I think they have it as well, and that actually helps your brain waves regulate, and it can be a form of stimming. And so you also might have. It's kind of funny if you relate to this. So you might have noise sensitivities, right? But then you also might listen to like heavy, super, super loud music, as loud as it can go. That could be a thing as well. So it also depends on the sound. So some sound might hurt and some sound might be amazing. And so just not judging that, right? But for your STEM toolkit, you can have the auditory, the music, you can have different textures, you can have your favorite snacks, soft things that you like to hold. You could have pokey things, just a range of things that really help you regulate and feel better. Some like tea bags, that's something you can get as well. A cool Christmas mug. This is visual stim. You can tell I like Christmas, right? I don't know. It's not even Christmas itself. It's like the feeling of Christmas. Sometimes Christmas is underwhelming, but it's kind of fun planning for it. So I don't know. It's always been a calming thing for me. So yeah, your toolkit is going to look personal depending on what you need. This is like healthy for your nervous system. It's really, really healthy for you. It's very soothing, and things can get better if you allow yourself to stim. And I remember, I'll just share when I first like let myself start stimming, I had all this stuff come up from school, and I like, I mean, I was like, I don't know, kids were mean, even meaner, I think, back then, but I didn't want to. I'm gonna say the word like, right. I don't want to be retarded. Like that's the word. It was like the little kid had the memory of people saying that, and that's what came up. And there's so much shame that can come with that, and shame around having autism or stimming or things like that. And so you might, when you start to unmask and let yourself stim, you might have like these voices from the past, or like, what the heck? Where did that come from? I don't, and so that might come up, and that's a good thing because it's been buried the whole time. But once you allow that and recognize it, things can get really a lot better. So, anyways, stim away, find your stimming profile, find what's fun for you, and honor that, your nervous system. And again, thank you so much for being a part of this. It's just one of the best parts of my week. So, have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday when we create a sensory friendly environment. All right, take care, everybody.